So my name is Vera Ventura. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. Originally, I'm from Miami. Um, and I have been in recovery actually for 16 years from food addiction. I was actually bulimic for about 7, 8 years and went on like a very deep spiritual path starting around 24 years old. I'm 40 now. Where I started meditating every day and eliminated flour and sugar and alcohol and drugs and men, things that were all very addictive for me. And was sort of like a pinnacle of health. I became a yoga teacher. I was really hyper conscious of my body, not in an obsessive way, but just being healthy, like eliminating chemicals and pharmaceuticals and, just anything that would potentially be cancer causing. And my father had passed away of cancer 2 years ago from pancreatic cancer. So I was like, oh my God, I never thought that I could ever have cancer, to be honest. And whenever, I saw the breast cancer events, I'd be like, oh, that's so sad for them. I was very much in the line of thinking, it's environmental and it's and the choices that you make, right? And I could do my best to avoid the environmental impacts and the choices that I make on a daily basis by healthy living and conscious living. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, it was just like a huge shock. So basically, I had felt like lumps in my breast, but really like a really big mass. So I always thought like breast cancer would just be these like little pea lumps. And it was like a big mass. And I was actually breastfeeding at the time. I have 2 kids. So my daughter was still breastfeeding, even though she was like quite old, like 4 years old. She was still breastfeeding. So I just thought, okay, well, it's from breastfeeding. It's some sort of like blocked milk duct. And I went into the doctor and they were like, oh yeah, it's a block, whatever. Don't worry about it right now. Just wait till you're done breastfeeding and we'll do a mammogram or something. And my mom was actually really persistent with me. She's like, have you gotten a mammogram? Have you gotten a mammogram? And it's interesting because in the US where I live, most women don't get mammograms till they're 45. So I was 39. I'm 40 now. So this is last year, almost a year ago, exactly. And I I was like, okay, this is a little weird. I'm going to stop breastfeeding on that side. So the lump really didn't go away. It felt like it was actually getting bigger. So then I went back again and I was like, okay, can we check this out? And so we did a mammogram, which is where they take your boob and then they have your boobs, and basically they get compressed and then scanned. It's not that enjoyable of an experience. It is not something that's pleasurable at all, but it needs to be done, right? So it happened, and I'm thinking, okay, it's definitely going to be benign. Like there's no way I could have. It's probably just some cyst. And then I got the news back that actually it was a tumor that they were concerned about, right? And they wanted to do a biopsy. So there was tumors on both sides, not just the right side, and not just the right side, but also the left side. And at that point, they don't tell you have cancer. They just say that you have some concerning areas, right? So then you have to wait to do a biopsy. And that in the biopsy is when they take samples, and that's where they take a piece of the tissue from the tumor. So that's another process. Once again, not that enjoyable. It's like an ultrasound, and then you just wait. And so a lot of the whole uncovering of breast cancer is actually a lot of waiting, which is important to have a deep spiritual grounding, because it could be very anxiety producing. And I know a lot of women struggle with that during the waiting time. So I called on a lot of my foundation, my wellness, my yoga, my, meditation, my, just faith. okay, calming, grounding. Because stress, you don't want to be stressed through the process. Like, that's the idea. You don't want to be stressed through the process, even though it can be stressful, right? So then you're waiting, and then I find out that it was actually cancerous, right? So both sides were cancer. So then you're getting that information, and then you have to wait to find out what the diagnosis is, right? Is it stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4? Did it metastasize? Did it go into your body? Is it in your lymph nodes? Like, these are all nuances that are very, like, oh my gosh, I could die tomorrow. Like, you just don't know, right? Is it metastatic, right? So then you have to wait more, and then there's more, uncovering of that. And so mine actually was stage 1 and stage 2. So it actually hadn't metastasized beyond my lymph nodes. And the way that they determined that was I had a surgery where they took out my lymph node. It's called the sentinel node. And they examined it to make sure there was no cancer in that sentinel node. So that's how I found out. So there was a bit of relief, because once it's gone into your body, that's very, very serious, and requires a lot of action. Not that I didn't have a lot of action as stage 1 and 2, but at that point, your doctor sits down with you and you come up with a plan of action, which involves usually like chemotherapy, things like that. So the next chapter of the story is also genetic testing, right? So there were a lot of red flags because I was under 40. I had bilateral breast cancer, bilateral, which means both sides. And I was really healthy, right? That's a red flag, because most women don't get breast cancer until later on, like in their 60s, especially bilateral. And so I went for genetic testing, and once again, another waiting game, because that takes about 3 weeks to come back. And on the form, you have like these little boxes that you check out, right? Like, are you this? Are you that? Are you this? Are you that? One of the boxes is, are you an Ashkenazi Jew? Well, I am full-blooded Jewish descent. However, I'm Sephardic and Ashkenazi. And Ashkenazi is the European, Sephardic is the more like Spanish side, because my family was originally from Spain on the Sephardic side. My father's family is the side that my grandmother had breast cancer. My father died of pancreatic cancer. My mother's side is the Ashkenazi didn't. So I thought, all right. But I still, of course, checked Ashkenazi Jew.
What does being a Jew have to do with having breast cancer?
Great question. So the Ashkenazi Jewish population has a higher rate of a certain kind of mutation called the BRCA1, BRCA2. So there's certain mutations because there was a genetic bottleneck during the Inquisition and the Crusades, where a lot of Jews were killed and forced to live in like small ghettoized areas where they intermarried. And the key to genetic diversity is interbreeding. Really, that's like the key to it. That's why if you look at like the Habsburgs or, like royalty, like the British royalty or something, there's just like a lot of I got the genetic testing back that I actually had the genetic mutation that causes cancer. And it's called the BRCA1.
So what was the timeline from you being diagnosed to kind of where we
Probably,
are now?
well, I was diagnosed exactly last year, November. So, I mean, where are we now in the timeline? About 2 months in, from when I got the genetic results.
So you got your results back,
and so, yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, everyone knows about Angelina Jolie, and so basically we share the same type of genetic mutation. So insurance companies actually now pay for women to proactively remove the breast and the ovaries as a result of this genetic mutation because of the high risk of breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So it's called the BRCA1. BRCA1 and BRCA2 genetic mutation. So I'm a carrier of that I inherited either from my dad or my mom, but most likely from my dad's side because he died of cancer, his mother died of cancer, and my mom's side, I don't have that on her side. So it's, you inherit it, right? And my daughter has a 50% chance of inheriting it too. But now they can do, they can see in your embryo, like I'm sorry, not embryo, but they can see before a baby's born if they have that. Like they can check the embryo cells. I don't know, but they can.
Okay. Wow,
they can
that's
screen.
Really interesting.
Yeah, they can screen for it now. We just didn't screen for it but then you play around with genetics and all that, which could be a little strange as well. But anyway, so I got that, and I honestly will say it was a bit of a relief because I knew that it was nothing like I did, right? It wasn't like a food I was eating or, I mean, obviously there could be a lot of environmental factors to it, and even eating out of plastic and, all that, it causes extra estrogen in the body, things like that. There are, in fish, I mean, there's definitely red flags with food and hormones and GMO, but once I found it was genetic, I kind of like relaxed a little bit. And then it was, that time that I was gearing up to do the chemo, and you see these women with the bald head, and like some of them are like, yeah, I got my bald head, and I was not really ready to be that kind of woman. I'll be honest, I'm pretty vain and I love my hair, and I had this really curly, like blonde, well, it was fake blonde, I'm not a natural blonde, but this curly blonde hair, and I was like very attached to it. So that was not, I was really, I'll be honest, that was hard for me. So I did my research, and a friend of mine was like, have you heard of the cold cap? I was like, I have not heard of the cold cap. And the cold cap is this incredible technology. Well, it's basically just like putting ice cubes on your head for about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours while you're getting chemo, and it freezes the hair follicle, and then your hair is less likely to fall out. So I don't know if you've heard of that.
No, never heard of that.
Yeah, it's the cold cap. So this would be good for women who don't know about that. So basically, there's this company called Paxman. There's a couple other companies, but I went with the company Paxman. And then what was really cool is there is a company here in the U.S., not a company, a nonprofit called Hair to Stay. And they actually help finance your cold cap too. So you get like subsidies with the cold, because insurance really doesn't cover it yet, although they totally should. They totally should. I think they are working on that, but they totally should. So it's like, it's pretty expensive, but I was able to get a great, discount, and I got the cold cap, and I started going for the chemo, and the chemo makes you, like, I got the big guns, and it just makes you so sick, and you don't want to eat, and you, your hair starts, falling out, not right away. Your hair doesn't fall, but it's cumulative effect. So yeah, the hair will still fall out, but it's like I never lost all my hair. So I always still look like I had hair, although it was very, very thin, and everything that was dyed like fell out. So that's why I have really short hair now, but I still never lost, like, I never lost my hair. Like it was always still there. Anyway, so I did that. The chemo was really intense. But at the same time, while I was doing my chemo, I was doing my essential oils, like detox, like a lot of like my holistic remedies I was doing in conjunction with the chemo, which I think everyone should do who's going through cancer treatment. It's really important to balance the chemical medicine with the holistic remedies, plant-based remedies. So every time I had chemo, detox, lemon oil, Zendocrine, cleaning out your kidneys, your liver, because that stuff can actually decrease your lifespan as well. Chemotherapy can actually, I know it's preserving your lifespan because it's killing the cancer, but it's also so much wear and tear on your organs. That's really important to clean it out because it can decrease your lifespan once you're obviously cancer-free. So a lot of that, I continued with like my cellular supplements, things like that, frankincense, for nausea, peppermint, ginger, digestion, there's one called Digestin. So exfoliating by doing, what's it called? Dry brushing, things like that, which is great for skin and circulation. So these are the practices that I practiced, and everyone was like, oh my God, you do so good. You're doing so good. My doctors were always like, oh my God. So the results were really amazing. Even though chemo was not easy, I had like probably abnormal results as a result. And I kept a lot of hair, more hair than they'd ever seen. And I think that's also as a result of what I was doing with supplements and things like that. So I was really grateful for that. And then once all that was over, I got like a certificate and was like, congrats, you're done with chemo. And then I got a double mastectomy in April. So right around coronavirus time. And initially I was going to have a total reconstruction where they take my belly fat, because I do have belly fat. I'm pretty thin, but I had belly fat. I had 2 kids. I had belly fat. They're going to take belly fat and put it where my boobs are, because I did not want implants. And I have friends who had implants and they are getting their implants removed because they have issues as a result of the implants. There's a whole movement now to remove implants. My friend just did that yesterday. She's from England, UK. And I knew always I'd never wanted implants. I wanted my own natural tissue. How cool is that? You can have your own fat as your boobs. I mean, hello, who wouldn't want that, right?
How easy was it for you to make the decision to have the double mastectomy?
Oh, I mean, once they told me I can do the fat transfer and make new boobs out of it, I actually was fine with it. I know a lot of women are like attached to their boobs. I mean, of course, I have a lot of memories with my boobs, and I enjoyed breastfeeding my kids, both of them, and my daughter until she was 4. So I think more the psychological, attachment to breastfeeding and all that. But I wasn't particularly like, I need to have my boobs. For the rest of my life, because my cancer is a genetic type, it's 100% recommended by like everywhere you go, if you're going to get second or third opinions, they're just going to say the same thing. So in that way, I never really fought the double mastectomy. I always knew that. I just wanted to do everything together. I just wanted I didn't want to wake up and have like nothing there.
Yeah, you're right. It's pretty awesome what you're saying, that they can actually take the fat from your stomach and they can use that for your breast.
Or your butt, or somewhere. Yeah. I mean, there are women who also got like muscle transfer. They can do that, but that's like that's not what I would want, especially being like someone very physical, yoga teacher. Like, I don't want to take a muscle from somewhere else and put it where it doesn't, I don't want to, personally, I wouldn't want to do that. But now, yeah, it's called the deep DIEP, literally taking fat, tissue, blood vessels to put it into your boobs. So, I mean, the scar will heal, it will fade, you know, it's still like above my bikini line, but it's a huge scar, which I don't personally care. You know, it's like your warrior scars.
Sure,
So,
definitely.
so yeah, I mean, that was the idea. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this, and we can do this like in January. And, and then they're like, you should do all your chemo first before you do any of that. So I was a little bit bummed out about that. I had to do all the chemo. The chemo was done March-ish, right when like, at March, April, May, somewhere around there, right when the coronavirus hit. I still had to do more chemo. So I think I had more chemo until April. And I think I did my double mastectomy in May, which was, you know, they could not do the reconstruction with the chemo. I mean, sorry, they could not do the reconstruction with the double mastectomy because of coronavirus time. So the plan had changed. So you had to be flexible. And I was really bummed out about that. I was actually really, because it's major surgery, right? It's major surgery. And to do the surgeries twice, double mastectomy was a huge surgery. Reconstruction is a huge surgery, right? So I just wanted to get it one shot, but that wasn't going to happen. And I was like, we should just wait. And they're like, no, you can't wait. You have to do the double mastectomy. So that time was really hard, and I didn't really want to do it. I wanted to wait, but they weren't having it. So I went for it, and I did the double mastectomy, and then they inserted tissue expanders into my breast area. And then they did the double mastectomy, and that was really like initially shocking, you know, to have no breast, and that my husband needed to help me. I went home the same day because no one was staying in the hospital because coronavirus. So that was like intense. And then they deconstructed the tumor inside the breast, and then they discovered it was a different type of cancer than what they thought. And then they suggested I do more immunotherapy. So I have now another year of immunotherapy because of the type of cancer that it is. And so I'm done with the chemo, but I'm doing immunotherapy every 3 weeks, which doesn't make your hair fall out, but it's no fun. I mean, it's still putting like all that chemical poison in your body. Good poison, but it's still, you know, after they blasted what it was, another, like underneath the blasting was like another type. So it's just a different type of response the cancer has. So it's going to respond really well to this therapy because, and keep in mind, like I could be totally cancer free right now, and I probably am, to be honest. This is all just preventative. So I live like really, really long life. So this is a 30 to 40% chance that I could have cancer. So 60% chance I don't. So everything I'm doing now, like even the double, after the double mastectomy, everything I do now at this point is all just preventative. So yeah, the immunotherapy is continual preventative. And the estrogen blocking is all preventative. We do estrogen blocking because if it's an estrogen blocking cancer, it's all preventative. So I did the double mastectomy and then more immunotherapy. And then finally they said, you're ready for the reconstruction when the coronavirus wasn't as extreme. And so I just did that 3 weeks ago, exactly. I had a total reconstruction with the deep flap. And I'm really happy with the results, and I'm really grateful. And I love my breast. I love my new stomach. Although there are they do have to tweak it a little bit. Like nothing is ever going to be, right away perfect. So it's kind of like an ongoing thing. Like if you want nipples, and they have to smooth out the sides a little bit of my stomach area. But yeah, I mean, the journey is not over. And it continues, and it's just like staying optimistic, staying healthy, taking care of yourself. I mean, so much of that is part of the journey. And and not getting discouraged, not getting no self-pity, you know, none of that. You know, I can't afford any of that.
Yeah. In your teachings, you talk a lot about self-care and routine. What have you done during this time to enable you to take care of your mental health, and what routines have you put in place?
Yeah, so every morning after my kids go to school, I meditate for a half hour. I connect with a lot of people, like constantly socializing, but like through Zoom, or like I go to 12-step meetings actually for my help with just the food addiction, which could take, you know, especially being quarantined, you know, it's so easy to go to flour, sugar as like a comfort, you know, and so my 12-step meetings help me just connect with other people who are in the same boat I am, and so I don't feel alone. I give service to other people. I sponsor other people who are suffering from food addiction as well. So doing service in the morning is really important to get out of your own head, so you don't wake up thinking about yourself, or like checking your social media and just making itself, like, for me, I'm an addict and I'm pretty self-centered as an addict. So to be like, get out of myself is really important. And then just the daily use of just like, you know, eating really healthy food, and taking my holistic, you know, my supplements that are like my omegas and my food nutrient, and using my essential oils and on my skin, and, you know, beautifying, and you know, being loving with my husband, you know, spending time with my kids, like all these things fill my soul. Connecting with my higher power, those are all things that fill my soul and keep me really grounded. Do I get off the beam sometimes? Of course, like, I'm human, I'm not a freaking robot, but those are like my foundations. And then you have a community, and in the company that I work for, there's an incredible community of people who have gone down the journey before as well. So pulling on that community of support, saying, hey, Vera, have you, you know, try this, and, you know, use this, you know, frankincense. If you Google frankincense, you know, PubMed, there's over 100 studies that show how powerful frankincense is for cancer prevention. You know, just things like that, where the knowledge is there and people are there to guide you as well. And it's like, you don't do it in isolation. It's from other people's journey who can provide that insight as well.
What struck me about you from your Instagram when I was going through your feed was how positive you were. You know, what's so wonderful speaking to you is that you know, I'm sure you've had some really low points throughout your journey. I'm sure you have, but you've really seemed to be quite, you know, kind of balanced, and it's all happened, all really just within the space of a year. Any tips or anything that you would be able to give to any women that are maybe on this journey, and, you know, how they could cope with it from a mental health perspective?
Sure. My advice would be to connect with some sort of support group, and connect with other women who have gone through it, so you feel like you're not alone.
Speaking to you. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. And yeah, we just wish you all the best for the future with everything.
Thank you. And, you know, if anyone's listening, if they want to connect with me, they can follow me on Instagram at Voracious Healing. And also my website is www.veraventura.com.
And the essential oils that you use a lot of, I believe that you have them for sale on your website too.
Oh yeah, I work with women directly. Actually, I work with women who have cancer and who are going through, and then just regular, you know, moms, whoever, you know, whatever, women, just to help them find the essential oils that will elevate their life. And that brings me so much joy. And all the consultations are free, and I just love figuring out what's going to work for you, and, you know, whether it be digestion, skin, stress, you know, and then introducing a really like non-toxic plant, because that's really the foundation of wellness, is getting rid of toxic chemicals and anything that would be compromising to your body. And you can't get any more pure than a plant. You just can't.